Welcome to class number 4 of the 10 Perfections. I'm your host. No, I'm not. I'm the teacher today, Sensei Mui. The host is the Theosophical Society in America. And the question for today is, are you mindful or just full of it? Notice the picture. The lady who's walking is thinking about all this stuff going on, and she's not seeing any of the scenery that's going on. She's not really present. She's living a short distance from her body. And the dog, who's a lot wiser, is seeing exactly what's in front of him and taking into view. This is the way it should be. We know all that. Okay, today we're going to talk about two very closely related perfections. There's Nekkhamma parami, which is renunciation. Ooh, people don't like that word. And the other one, Panna parami, meaning transcendental insight. And most people like that word a lot better because when you're wise, everybody loves you. When you're renouncing things, well, you get a whole different reaction from people. What is the world? Well, the Buddha tells us the world is the same as dukkha. And as every teenager in high school knows, the world sucks. It's not a happy place sometimes. It's not often kind. It's not often that you get exactly what you want. There's a saying in Western occultism. It was coined by Aleister Crowley. You never get what you want, but you usually get what you expect. And this is true of life in general. So, where in the world? We're talking about the world as it relates to dukkha. Now, remember in the first class we talked about Four Noble Truths. There is dukkha. There is the origin of dukkha. There is the cessation of dukkha, and there is the way to the cessation of dukkha. Let's look at what the Buddha says is the world. He was asked, what do you mean by world? And he says, it is this very fathom-long physical frame, his 6-foot-tall body, with its perceptions and mind, that I declare lies the world. And its arising, and the arising of the world, and the cessation of the world, and the path leading to the cessation of the world. He's equating the world with dukkha, stress, ill at ease, contemptible emptiness. So it's all there. And where is it? It is within the body, with its perceptions, that's the 5 physical senses, and mind, the intellectual sense. So, knowing that, in Pure Land Buddhism they have a saying, when the mind is pure, that would be this thing, the land is pure, hence the name Pure Land. So if we can purify the mind, we can purify the perceptions as well. And he goes on to say, ne'er may world's end be reached by walking. No release is there from ill till that end is reached. Therefore that wise one, the knower of the world, is the one who has reached the end. Consummate in him is the holy life, knowing the world's end, that sage, serene, yearns not for this world, nor for any other. So, somehow the Buddha got over craving the stuff that's in the world. And he goes on to tell us, first, where is the world? Now he's going to tell us what the world actually is. And he calls it the all. All that there is simply the eye and forms, ear and sound, nose and aromas, tongues and flavors, body and tactile sensations, intellect, ideas. This, monks, is called the all. Anyone who would say, reputing this all, I will describe another, if questioned on exactly might be the grounds for his statement, would be unable to explain, and furthermore would be put to grief. Why? Because it lies beyond range. What he is saying here, pretty obvious, everything that the human being experiences, he experiences through his or her senses. That's all we actually know. Everything else is speculation. We have a lot of beliefs. We have a lot of data that's given to us, intellectual data. Like, I have never been to Bhutan, but I know, because I've been told by people I trust, that Bhutan actually exists. But within my realm of experience, I know nothing about it. And that's all the Buddha is talking about, is experience, the human experience. And this is often misunderstood in Buddhism, that what he's saying, that he might be saying that there is nothing that exists outside of the human experience. Well, this isn't necessarily true. He's not exactly saying that. What he's saying is that all we actually directly know is through our experience. Okay, Nekkhamma, as defined by monks. This is the hard renunciation part. This is the part about renunciation that people really don't like. That is, to give up or to renounce the worldly pleasures in all of their forms. In other words, traditionally this means to retire to a solitary life in a cave, in a kuti, which is a really cool micro house, to a monastery, and then one searches for the highest truth and hopefully attains peace. The thirst for sensual enjoyment is unsatiable and unquenchable. That's why people become monks. Because they really don't want to be stimulated all the time by stuff that doesnst satisfy them. So we become monks. The more one enjoys, the thirstier for the mundane pleasures one will become. It becomes an addiction. The more you try it, the more you want it. The more you want it, the more you try it. A vicious cycle. It is like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. Your thirst doesn't get quenched. And it's also been compared to the act of licking the sharp edge of a sword. Now, classically, this Nekkhamma, this renunciation, is seen as, a bodhisattva finds that the household life is full of responsibilities and burdens. They regard the homeless life like an open sky free from worldly ties. Naturally, they lead a solitary life and easily realize that all the sensual pleasures in this world are transient, profitless, ignoble, fleeting like a flash of lightning or like a tiny dewdrop on a blade of grass. That's a very poetic way of saying something to the effect of, they really don't want to be held responsible for what they're doing. So they give up their home and their family and they go off to the monastery where they have absolutely no responsibilities. If you've ever been in a monastery, you know that's not exactly true. You get a lot of responsibilities in a monastery, and all that freedom you were hoping to find ain't there. So, but because of this explanation, it is said that this is why bodhisattvas realize the vanity of material pleasures and seek delight in Nekkhamma to get rid of the worldly feathers on their way to enlightenment. Now, that's the classical interpretation. This is what you see in books. But let's look at the word for a minute. I have a doctorate in linguistics. I might as well use it. Nekkhamma is not meant to be taken literally. It's a metaphor. It's to be taken figuratively. It's derived from a word, Nekkhamma, meaning to go forth, or to go forth from something, to come out of, to get out of, to issue forth, to depart, to leave the household life behind. It also means to retire from the world or give up evil desire, to enter into, to leave behind lust, evil, and the world, to get rid of craving, to show right exertion and strength. Notice the word kamma here looks a whole lot like the word kamma or karma. Well, they're related. Kamma is the result of craving. Now, if we look at it from more contemporary eyes, you have this word here, nis plus kamati. Nis is the equivalent to the Latin word un, as in undo, uninvolved, unengaged, or disengaged. It literally means without, or it means the opposite of something. Pointing out the finishing, completion, or vanishing of an action. And in this sense, it means the reverse of. Kamati is to walk, to travel, to go, to enter into, to plunge into. So what it really means is not to plunge into something. And what they're actually trying to get at is not to plunge into unskillful action. Action that will come back and bite you someday. That is action like not being totally honest with your spouse, because your spouse will eventually find out. They have like radar or something. For a child, not to try to deceive your parents, or to steal something. Eventually, all the evil that we do, if not found out directly by others, is known to ourselves. So anything that we do that's unskillful and it becomes habitually unskillful, it comes back and hurts us more and more and more. And this is the renunciation that this word Nekkhamma is talking about. Renouncing stuff that will hurt us. And it's an evolutionary process. We start out small and work our way into bigger and bigger and bigger things. Now, when the Buddha is talking about renouncing worldly things, he too is speaking figuratively. And I think that in the 2,500 years of Buddhism, Buddhists have put a lot of emphasis on monasticism, on hardcore practice, sitting 6 hours a day, eating only 1 spoonful of soup at lunch, and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't work that way. Life just doesn't happen in those kinds of terms. Most of us live at home. Most of us have families. Most of us have jobs. Most of us have bills to pay. So the renunciation comes in other forms for most of us. Sure, you can go up to a monastery, or you can go to the Himalayas and live there in a wooden shack on top of a mountain and become totally enlightened there. But that's not quite renunciation. The word Nekkhamma is closely related to the word kamma as in karma, as I said. And what it literally implies is not to enter into unwholesome kammas and to go to something beautiful, a beautiful life. The very word renunciation is life affirming, not life repudiating. Renounce literally means to name against or name again. We have the word pronounce, we have the word renounce, we have the word announce. And every time that word, that form of base form of the word shows up, nounce, it means noun, to name something. And in this case, it means to rename an action. And when you rename an action, like, this is my favoriteest thing in the world, okay, now it's not my favoriteest thing in the world. This is, you have reprioritized things. So we give different priorities to different things. Suddenly being deceptive so you can stay out of trouble is not nearly as high a priority as being honest and getting out of trouble right away just by telling the truth, no matter how much it's going to hurt in that moment. In Buddhism, Nekkhamma means to reprioritize the things we crave, to walk away from the habits that lead to unwholesome kamma and unskillful action. It doesn't mean to take off the clothes you're wearing, put on orange robes, and head out to the monastery. It doesn't mean that. It means to rename, to renounce the unwholesome things that we've been doing. This is the work of a monk and nun and the anagarika, the left home one. Anagarika is an interesting word. It means not a layperson or a householder, one who belongs to a home or a house. The anagarika still lives at home. He still has a family and kids, but his priorities are not to commit evil, to purify the mind, and to do it now. Life gets in the way, and this is why we renounce. This is life. This is me. This has been me for 60-some years now, and this has been life for as long as life has existed. Sometimes life is scary. Renunciation is a way to make life a little less scary. What is to be renounced? Well, remember the all that we talked about at the very beginning? It's the Sabha Sutta. What is the world composed of? Well, we give up things of the eye. We give up things of the ear. We renounce things of the nose. We renounce things of the tongue, of the body, of the intellect. We let go of holding on to these sensual things. We do that because, as the Buddha says, it's for your long-term happiness and benefit. None of this belongs to us. The intellect, ideas are not yours. The intellectual consciousness is not yours. The intellectual contact is not yours. We don't own any of this stuff. Coming in here, I saw a couple of really cute bunny rabbits. They were really cute. They were playing with each other. They were running around in circles, stopping and jumping on each other, then running away again. And it was really kind of cool. And I enjoyed it. If I were to crave it, seeing something like that again, crave that kind of enjoyment, then I'm claiming ownership of it. Now, that example might not be the best in the world. I'll give you one that you can probably understand more. Let's say you get mad at somebody. Somebody offends you. Well, you don't own the anger. It comes and goes. You don't own the person that has offended you. That comes and goes. You don't even own the intellect that you use to imagine and perceive that they offended you. That too comes and goes. And it's an odd thing. If we can't renounce it, if we can't let go of it, the hurt that we feel that caused the anger in the first place keeps hurting us. The person might be gone, but every time we remember, we feel that pain again. That anger arises again. Then it goes away. And then suddenly we remember again. And we start holding a grudge. And every time we think of the person, we get a little more angrier and we're hurt again. We're beating ourselves up by using this other person. This is a classic case where renunciation would be very helpful. Let go of holding on to that anger. Let go of holding on to the memory. Stop bringing it back. Two interesting words in English, forgiveness and forget. Who hasn't heard the term forgive and forget? To forgive literally originally meant to forego getting. That was forget. We forego going back into our memory, getting the memory, and bringing the incident present. That's forgetting. Forgiving originally literally meant to forego giving back in kind. So people can forgive and forget anytime they want. We just choose not to. We have a counter argument for that. Well, I can forgive you, but I'll never forget. That is baloney. You're going to forget it as soon as you have a happy experience. You don't have to go back and get it again. If I kick you in the shin, every time you think of me kicking you in the shin, you're going to get mad at me. But as soon as you eat an ice cream cone, you're going to forget that I kicked you in the shin. Unless you're a real masochist. Then you're going to need that monastery trip. What are the results of letting go? Whatever arises in dependence upon contact, that's the incident that we're clinging to, that we're refusing to let go of, experienced either as pleasure, as pain, or as neither pleasure nor pain, madukkha nasukha, that too is not yours. Let go of it. Your letting go of it will be for your long-term happiness and pleasure, or benefit, excuse me. We can let go of anything that arises dependent upon something else, because everything arises because of conditions. Things are caused to come into being, and then conditions allow that thing to exist. We can stop the process wherever we want. It is literally a choice. And Nekkhamma, renunciation, just makes sense. If by forsaking a limited ease, he would see an abundance of ease, the enlightened man would forsake the limited ease for the sake of the abundance. That's only reasonable. If it's causing, the old joke, doctor, it hurts when I do this, don't do it. That's exactly what we do to ourselves when we refuse to let go of holding on. Sooner or later, we're either going to die of a chronic headache by doing this all the time, or we're going to have to quit. It just makes more sense to quit. Now, even the Buddha didn't think renunciation was that good of an idea when he first thought of it, or thought that he ought to kind of do it. Renunciation is good, seclusion is good, but my heart didn't leap up at renunciation, didn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. Then the thought occurred to me, what is the cause? What is the reason why my heart doesn't leap for joy at renunciation? Doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace? Then the thought occurred to me, because I haven't seen the drawbacks of giving in to my sensual pleasures. I haven't pursued that theme. I haven't understood the reward. I just keep wanting to give in. And we're all a little like that. That's part of human nature. And it's okay. Sooner or later, we'll get tired of skinning our knees and finding out that there's nobody around to pat us on the head and say, there, poor baby. We're going to have to do that ourselves. Renunciation as a skill. Renunciation is a skill. Now, we're all familiar with the American principle, the pursuit of happiness. Well, in Buddhism, renunciation also involves the pursuit of happiness. And that happiness is also very, very closely related to the other parami we'll be talking about tonight, Panna, wisdom. Because the happiness that this practice is looking toward is the happiness that is true and lasting, ultimate, unchanging, and honest. It's authentic. It's serious, not in the grim sort of a way, but it is a very serious, very deliberate pursuit of that ultimate, unchanging, authentic happiness. And to do so, to get to that point, we have to be dedicated, we have to be disciplined, and we have to be willing to make intelligent sacrifices. And you can see there's somebody out there pulling their hair out of their head going, oh no, Sensei, say it isn't true. I don't have to sacrifice, do I? Well, of course you do. Of course, when we hear the word sacrifice, we think we're really giving something up. Think about it this way. You go to a fine restaurant. Now, you're looking at the menu and there are two things that you really like. One is a beautiful hunk of ribeye. It's about that thick and it's cooked to perfection with the gravy and the mashed potatoes and the peas and it's just mushrooms and it's just perfect. The other choice that you've got is like that thick smoked pork chop, we call it Kessler, and it's wrapped in bacon and it's being served on a ham platter. Wow, that's a heck of a choice. And then you look at the benefits of either or. Well, there's a lot of grease and cholesterol and fat in the pig fest over here. I think I'll go with the prime rib. Did you sacrifice the pork chop for the prime rib? No, you prioritized. This will taste better to me. It has fewer calories, maybe. Maybe there's not as much grease. Maybe there's not as much cholesterol. Maybe, you can come up with all these cost-benefit analyses. And that's what we're doing with life. We're choosing things that will help us over things that will harm us. Very simple. always with the idea that when we make these choices, our lives will be happier, our lives will be more peaceful, at least internally, and we'll experience greater freedom. That's not the freedom to do. That's the freedom from. And that's the freedom from stress. It's freedom from that contemptible emptiness, that hole we got to keep filling up. It's freedom from suffering. It's freedom from mental pain. And what kind of sacrifices are intelligent? An intelligent sacrifice is like a profitable trade. You gain greater happiness by letting go of something that will give you lesser happiness. For instance, you're willing to trade a bag of candy, even Kit Kat bars, for a pound of gold, aren't you? I mean, they're both enjoyable in their own right, but you can do a lot more with gold than you can with Kit Kat bars. People accept that as payment. It pays mortgages, it makes car payments, pays doctor bills. One of the Buddha's disciples once said, I'll make a trade. I'll trade aging for agelessness. Burning desire for freedom from that desire. The highest peace, the unexcelled safety from bondage. Nibbana. He was willing to trade off the stress and suffering that he had in this life for happiness for the rest of his life. You don't gotta be a genius to see the benefit of that. But it's the American way to keep the candy and get the gold too. Can we do that? Maturity teaches us that we can't have everything we want. Like the Rolling Stones song, Mick Jagger spoke true. You can't always get what you want. To indulge in one pleasure almost always involves denying ourselves of another one. Sometimes the one that we denied would have been the better choice. How often have we been disappointed with the kinds of choices we've made? We need to establish clear priorities for investigating our limited time and energies that we have available to us and where they'll give the most lasting returns. Carl Rogers calls this cost-benefit analysis. See, in the 1970s, psychologists had it right. You've got to make decisions based upon the benefits you'll get from them. Very simple. And at all times, give top priority to the mind, because that's where it's at. The mind is where the action is. You might taste it with your tongue, you might see it with your eyes, but all the data that's coming in is being formulated and twisted around in your brain, and the mind is interpreting it. Material things and social relationships. And how many of us today are craving material things and craving social relationships? There's a whole industry on social networking alone. Well, these things are unstable. They're very easily affected by forces beyond our control. And the happiness they offer is fleeting and undependable. If you buy a new car, the moment it gets scratched, it's not new anymore. The pride of ownership is suddenly gone. When I was younger, I wanted to find the perfect woman. So I searched far and wide for the perfect woman, and I found her, and everything was fine until she discovered she was perfect, but I wasn't. Then I found another one, and everything was fine. Then I discovered I was perfect and she wasn't. Eventually, I found one that was perfect for me. And at times, she sort of likes me too. The well-being of a well-trained mind can survive even aging, illness, and death. This is why the state of mind that is able to make this renunciation, these better choices, is called the deathless state. That is because the mind doesn't constantly trip over itself trying to acquire the things that it craves. It's okay to desire stuff. It really is okay to desire things. Desire a good meal, desire a better home, desire a better job. That's fine. That's great. And we should work toward those in our society. It's not okay to obsess over them to the point where it's causing us pain. How many wise decisions can we make when we're in pain? Seriously, try to do a simple math problem after you've stubbed your toe, while you're stressed out about work. Try to make a reasonable decision at home. The two seem to negate one another. To train the mind requires time and energy. We have to be patient. We have to be patient with ourselves. And we have to have the proper amount of energy. We can't overdo it because then we twist things out of proportion, and we can't be too relaxed about it because then nothing will get done. It's okay to be calm and serene, but please, get up and do something. By the way, these are two more perfections. Notice how cleverly I worked them in so you know that they're all kind of related. This is one of the reasons why the pursuit of true happiness demands that we sacrifice some of our external pleasures so we can have inner pleasures. Pure mind creates a pure land. The third reason for sacrificing external pleasures. We went through these two already over here. Now we'll talk about the third reason. In pursuing some pleasures, such as our addiction to eye candy, ear candy, nose, tongue, and body candy, we foster qualities of greed, anger, and delusion that actively block the qualities needed for inner peace. Greed comes from a place of want. We feel like we just don't have enough. We feel impoverished, so we want more. Anger comes from a place of fear. If I perceive that I'm about to lose something, I become angry. If I perceive that I'm about to lose the opportunity to have something I don't have, I might become angry as well. It's acting from the place of fear. So now, if we give in to these 5 sense pleasures of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, now I'm not talking about bacon here, that's a different category. But I'm talking about day-to-day cravings. I've got to watch this show on TV tonight because my favorite actress is in it. I've got to listen to that kind of music because that's the only one that makes me happy. I really have to wear Chanel No. 5 because that's the only fragrance that I enjoy. these kinds of cravings that separate us from others, that separate us from ourselves. When we give into them, we give into a feeling of poverty. When we give into them and anger arises, we are fostering and nurturing fear. And of course, we're fostering delusion because we think that there's something out there that is going to make in here happy and fulfilled. So by giving into these things, we're creating a terrifying world of want and illusion. And if we had all the time and energy in the world, the pursuit of these pleasures would still amount to nothing and take us further and further and further away from the goal of being happy, the goal of being more peaceful, the goal of being free from the very things that we're actively pursuing. Okay, so we all suffer from a little bit of neurotic behavior. We act out against our own self-interests when we rush after our cravings. Very, very little sense to it. So we have to develop right resolve. This is determination. It also has to do with effort, the right effort, the appropriate determination, the appropriate effort. It's like tuning a string on a violin or a guitar. If you tune it too tightly, the string breaks. We snap. We get burnt out. We just can't do it anymore. If we don't tighten it enough, we fall flat, just like the note on the string. As if we only tried half-heartedly. To resolve to forego any pleasures involving sensual passion, ill will, and harmlessness. Harmfulness, yeah. These are what we must resolve to do. It says here, forego. And again, this is the classic interpretation. I'm not going to make it that stringent. Not to crave, to forego our cravings for sensual pleasures and passions, ill will, and harmfulness. What are we talking about here, really? Attachments and aversions. That's all we're really talking about. Not constantly giving in to our attachments and our aversions. It's not about giving up things that we love. I mean, really love. We're talking about the stuff that leads us to greater harm. Sensual passion covers not only sexual desire, although every time I say sensual passion, young people's eyes light up. Oh yeah. Sometimes middle-aged people's eyes light up too. But it doesn't cover sexual desire so much as just any pleasure on the senses that disrupts the peace of mind. Lots of things in life disrupt peace of mind. Craving a meal at a particular restaurant might disrupt the peace of mind. Being disappointed that you didn't get what you wanted disrupts the peace of mind. Seeing somebody you don't like disrupts the peace of mind. So let go of holding on to not liking the person. Get over it. Ill will covers any wish for suffering, either for oneself or for others. Ill will. Do I wish myself to suffer? Sometimes I think so. I really do. Sometimes I will do things, eat things, say things, listen to things that will disturb me. Why would I want to do that? But every once in a while I do. We all do. And the wish for somebody else's suffering? Now that's really perverse. Harmfulness is any activity that would bring that suffering about. So what? We got three related things here. We've got the sensual passions, which disrupts peace of mind, ill will, which is simply the wish that others or ourselves suffer, and harmfulness actually doing something to bring that about. First, if we resolve to renounce these passions, we often find it is difficult just to make the resolution, like any New Year's resolution. Following through on it can be devastating for a while. It's like a guy that's giving up cigarettes for the first time. I remember back in the 80s, I used to be a really heavy smoker, and I gave up cigarettes for a week. After a week, my boss brought me 2 cartons of cigarettes just so I'd go back to normal. I was really hard to live with. And it's hard to give up things that we love or feel that we need or identify with. This is who I am. It would be real hard for me to give up the robes because this is how I identify myself. Our resistance to renunciation, it's odd, but it's peculiarly a Western thing. We really fight hard. And one of the reasons we do this is pop psychology. I'm not talking about professional psychologists here. I'm talking about, well, everybody knows, and you go online, you see a website, and they're going to teach us that the only alternative to a healthy indulgence of our sensual pleasures is an unhealthy, fearful repression of them. That's more of that baloney that we were talking about earlier. This is fear-based. Just by saying this, it's fear-based. Repression is based on a fear of what the passion might do when expressed openly, or even allowed into the consciousness. There's also the fear of indulgence, and this is based on the fear of deprivation. Remember the greed that we were just talking about, coming from a place of poverty. And suddenly indulgence is the fear of deprivation. The fear of deprivation, which causes us to indulge, becomes the monster under the bed. Or in my case, the monster in the closet. We feel that if we resist indulging ourselves, that these passions will go deep into our subconscious and burn there and fester there, and eventually we'll just go berserk and indulge ourselves in them, and nothing could be further from the truth. But it's a popular myth that this is the way it works. You can't suppress anything. You have to give in. Honor it, they say. Honor it. Both alternatives place serious limitations on the mind, and the Buddha was aware of these drawbacks. And so he developed a fearless, skillful approach that avoids the dangers of either side. And this alternative is renunciation. Right resolve, or right intention, as it's sometimes called, is the second of the Eightfold Path. It belongs to the wisdom division of the Eightfold Path. And what is right resolve? Being resolved on renunciation, on freedom from ill will, on harmlessness. This is called right resolve. Right resolve, being determined or having the intention to reprioritize what is important in our lives. To be free from the wish that ourselves or others suffer, and to have the intention not to carry out that harmfulness on ourselves or others. That's right resolve. And it relates to other parts of the Buddhist path, particularly right view and right concentration. Right view is the ability to see life as it really is. Right concentration is the ability to analyze the path you're on. Right resolve builds on right view. It functions as the directed thought and evaluation that brings the mind to right concentration. Right view provides a skillful understanding of sensual pleasures, what they're really all about, and so our approach to the problem doesn't go from one extreme to the other. We can stay in the middle way. And concentration provides inner stability and bliss, serenity. We can clearly see the roots of our own passions, and sometimes the roots of the passions of others. And it avoids the fear of deprivation at the prospect of pulling out these passions. Okay, what is right view? Well, glad you asked. Knowledge with regard to stress, or the world. Knowledge with regard to the origin of stress, or the world. Knowledge with regard to the cessation of stress, or the world. Knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress, or the world. This is called right view. Remember, stress, that is dukkha, and the world are one and the same thing. There is no difference. Life is not suffering, the world is suffering. Right concentration, quiet, withdrawn from sensuality, the obsession with the senses, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities. One enters and remains in the first jhana, and of course this has to do with meditation. But it's meditation that we take with us day in and day out. That's why we started with the picture of the woman and the dog, mindful or mindful. Here is a short reflection. Now, if you take a moment and just look at your own life, what are some of the priorities that you might need to change in order to have a happier life for yourself? And maybe a little peace at home for others. Are there intelligent sacrifices that you're willing to make now? Or can you foresee intelligent sacrifices that you may have to make later? And how do you use right intention or resolve, right view, and right concentration to make your life happier, more peaceful, and give you more freedom? This is what we've really been talking about for the last almost an hour. Panna, the eye of discernment. Now, the idea of renunciation and wisdom are very, very closely related. They like piggyback on one another. You can't make skillful decisions unless you have wisdom behind it to help you make those decisions. So we have, we have a thing that happens here. Earlier I had said that renunciation, Nekkhamma, is a evolutionary process. It's developmental. You use the wisdom you have to determine what renunciation you can make now for your own better good. What can I give up so I'll feel better later? You start with the wisdom you have. After all, we're all doing the best we can. Some got dealt really good cards, some got dealt really bad cards, but we're all playing the best game we've got. So we start with the wisdom we have to make the most skillful decisions we possibly can at this time. The more we let go of holding on to things that disturb our peace and serenity, that cause inner conflicts, the wiser we become, so we can make better decisions about what to let go of. And having let go of these other things, we now become wiser and we can make better decisions. So it's this ongoing process between renunciation and wisdom. Panna. I just like to say that word. Panna. So, with what does one know a quality that can be known? One knows a quality that can be known with the eye of discernment. And what is the purpose of discernment? The purpose of discernment is direct knowledge. Its purpose is full comprehension. Its purpose is abandoning the stuff that's not helping us. Remember at the very beginning, the woman's walking your dog. She's got all these thoughts going on in her head. They're stressful. They're causing her not to be at peace. The dog's very happy. The dog's just digging life. The lady that's walking him is not. She could have abandoned all those stressful thoughts and just enjoyed life as it was going by, experiencing it directly. Instead, she was experiencing it vicariously by imagining what had happened, what is happening, and what will happen. All of it elsewhere, either past, either present, or future. Here's an interesting word, Dhammavichaya. Another word I like to say. It's another word for Panna, and it means searching for truth. Searching for truth. That falls here. The purpose of direct discernment is direct knowledge. Its purpose is full comprehension. Searching for truth. On that occasion is the faculty of wisdom. On that occasion is the faculty of wisdom? The wisdom which there is on that occasion is understanding, search, research, searching for truth. And that is from the Dhammasangani number 9, and that's in the collection called the Abhidhamma, the Further Truths. This idea of searching for truth, it's not like a crusade. It's like watching what truth is right here in the moment. When wisdom fails, there are 3 kinds of people in this world: those who are good at math and those who aren't. This is contemporary logic. There's only two kinds of people mentioned here, those who are good at math and those who aren't. There are three kinds of people in the world. Okay, bad joke. Sorry, you have to put up with my bad humor. It's chronic. Now, we have a thing. We talked about Kalyamita, the good friend, before, in reference to Sila. Panna means wisdom. Wisdom is discernment, the ability to judge well. There are 8 prerequisites to the attainment of wisdom. Now, wisdom is discernment, the ability to judge well. The ability to judge what it is that we have to abandon, that is renunciation. Again, I'm just trying to show how they work together. If we aspire for the highest peaks of transcendent wisdom and liberation, we can well count ourselves blessed if we cross paths with a few spiritual friends who share our ideals, who make earnest efforts to nurture the noblest qualities of the Dhamma, truth, in their hearts. We really need friends that are authentic, that really are integrated and that understand themselves, that understand how their lives work so they can help us as we go through our life. They're not there to save us. They're there to help us, to guide us, to mentor us through life. Maybe then, on the other hand, it's not life that sucks. Maybe it's just the people you let into your life that sucks. This is possible. Without good friends, we would never know. If we only have bad friends, well, you got to blame somebody. Normally, we blame life. What are the 8 causes of wisdom? He lives in an apprenticeship to the teacher or to a respectful comrade in the holy life. Yes, you need that Kalyamita, the good friend, the one that will mentor you and put you on. These are the words of the Buddha, by the way. That's why the language is a little strange. The teacher reveals what is hidden. He makes plain what is obscure and dispels perplexity in many kinds of perplexing things. All this is saying is that the teacher's exposing reality for what it is. The teacher has been there. There is a myth that somehow we can enlighten other people without ourselves being enlightened. How can you lead somebody if you don't know where you're going? You can't even lead yourself if you don't know where you're going. So you need somebody who's been there and done that so they can help you along on the path. So the teacher reveals what is hidden, makes things less obscure, more clear. Now, what is your role in it? Having heard the Dhamma, having heard realities as it really is, the student, the person looking for enlightenment, achieves a twofold seclusion. The seclusion in body and the seclusion in mind, and that does not mean run off to a cave and hide, or to run to a monastery and sit on your cushion for 8-10 hours a day. It doesn't mean that. Seclusion in body, meaning not getting carried away in sensual pleasures. Have a few, enjoy life, but don't go hog wild and hurt yourself. Seclusion in mind means don't let it get bombarded with information overload, with trying to believe what other people are saying. You have to rely on yourself. This is seclusion in mind. Quality number 4, the fourth cause of wisdom. You develop virtue. That's Sila. We talked about that last week. Dwells restrained in accordance with the Patimokkha. That's the 5 precepts that we were talking about last week. You behave well. You behave appropriately, both when you're alone and when you're with others. And number 5, you listen to the teachings. You listen to what wiser people, what your mentor and teachers have said. You do this often. You retain what you have heard. You discuss these ideas with your teacher and with others. You accumulate more teachings and you examine them with your mind and penetrate them in terms of right view. This is all you can do. If you have done that, you have done everything. The 6th cause is persistence in abandoning unskillful mental qualities. Persistence in renunciation. You've got to keep letting go of holding on to stuff. And for this, you have to be steadfast, another word for persistent, solid in your effort. You just can't go about it half-heartedly. And you don't shirk your duties with regard to skillful mental qualities. Like you don't run out, have a few beers, and then try to figure it out. Your mind may be relaxed to the point where you're anesthetized. Okay, and when you're with the Sangha, a holy community with friends, Sangha could mean almost anything in this case for most of us. It doesn't have to be a group of Buddhist monks. It can be a group of friends, a group of acquaintances at work, whatever your sphere of activity is. You don't talk on and on and on about everything that comes to your mind. Remember, just because it comes to the mind, it does not have to come out the mouth. We need to show some restraint. We either speak about Dhamma, reality as it is, or we invite others to speak about real experience, direct experience, not the fantasy world most of us live in. And then one should not feel disdain for noble silence. There is a nobility in being quiet. We used to call that the strong, quiet type in old westerns of the 50s. And the idea holds true. There is an old Chinese expression, it's better to keep silent and have people think you're a fool than to open your mouth and prove it to them. And the 8th cause of wisdom, he remains focused on arising and passing away with regard to the 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates: form, its origination and disappearance; feeling, its origination and disappearance. And remember, there are only 3: good, bad, and indifferent. Perception, pattern recognition, its arising, its origin, and its disappearance. Fabrications, these are caused by kamma, the things we actually build, how we react to it, how we see, we have this perception, we recognize a pattern, and then we start relating to it, and we start telling a story about it. We see that, we see how we do that. Its origination and its disappearance. And then consciousness, when it becomes a me and it situation. And now I'm writing an entire novel about it and my relationship to it. And we watch that origination and that disappearance. And there are 2 dimensions of human experience. There is the mundane, that is dimension of world involvement, and there is the transcendental, which is disengagement from the world. Both are governed by a single structural principle, and that is dependent arising. Both the mundane, worldly experience and the transcendent experience are both based firmly upon conditionality, that nothing happens in a vacuum, everything is caused. Nothing is self-generating. Even in the transcendental view, where this wisdom arises, there are still causes and conditions. The mind is conditioned to see it. And then we can see how things are working together without our adding prejudices, preconceptions, and judgments to them. That's really where the transcendental comes into play. In the mundane world, when we get involved in it, we start telling stories. This is good, this is bad. That's great. Everybody should have one of those. Nobody should have one of those. Get up, get back down again. We talk about all of this kind of stuff when we're engaged in the world. We get into the place where, if only I had this, I'd be happy. Or because of him or her, I'm not happy today. In the transcendental reality, the stuff is still there. The cars are still there, the eye candy is still there, the pot of gold still at the end of the rainbow. But now we see how it works together, and we stop thinking about it. We stop adding to what we're seeing, what we're envisioning. We're no longer placing judgment of good, bad on it. And we can approach it with some kind of serenity. Enemies to peace of mind. Things we should not preoccupy ourselves with. I love this list. The first two in this list come from an actual sutta, so I thought I'd throw them in here. Magic spells. Don't involve yourselves with magic spells. It will ruin your peace of mind. The black arts. Black magic, to do harm to another, I suppose. But also don't preoccupy yourself with gossip, solving the world's problems through your political views, because it ain't going to happen. Mindless entertainment. I've got a game on my phone that I like to play for hours on end. And that's pretty mindless entertainment, something I shouldn't preoccupy myself with. The sensual marketplace. When I think of this term, I think of TV commercials, believe it or not. Everything from Victoria's Secrets to teeth whitener. Those are pretty sensual marketplaces. Other sensual marketplaces, mindlessly listening to videos or music without any kind of purpose to it. I'm not talking about just sitting down and kicking back and relaxing for a half hour or so. But you see folks walking down the streets with their earbuds, I guess they're called, in their ears. And they're not paying attention to where they're going. They're walking out into traffic, bumping into people. This is something that's probably wise not to preoccupy yourself with on a busy street or when you're driving, for instance. Fairy dust is something we should probably avoid. Fairy dust is a term I coined from, it used to be called Dharma light. I call it fairy dust. It's a form of spiritual teaching where if you do this, send me a check for $199.99, I will lead you to total bliss. Because I will send an angel to your house and They'll make everything all right. Fairy dust Buddhism, fairy dust Christianity, fairy dust New Age, fairy dust whatever. It's all out there. Anger. Don't preoccupy yourself with anger. This is certainly not a good idea. Anger is pretty much always a waste of time. And not letting go of holding on is something we should also not preoccupy ourselves with. We need to let go. There's a beautiful image in a movie I once saw. It was actually a Japanese movie, but I'm sure it's the same in every culture. A guy is making an offering to a god, and because he needs a special favor from the god, and he brings in this basket of jewels and fruit and all kinds of things, anything that God might like. And he puts it down on the altar and he bows and he leaves and it's for you, it's for you. He goes outside and he says, you know what, I could really use that stuff. And he goes back and picks it up and leaves. Of course, his whole world goes to pot the next day. But he refused to let go. He continued holding on to his precious stuff at the cost of his life. Wrong view. I do believe in magic. This is actually from a Walt Disney thing. I think that has to do with Tinkerbell and Peter Pan. But magical thinking is something that we need to stay away from. That if I do this in this way and this way and this, everything's going to work out just fine. These prayer formulas. If I say it in such and such's name, and I use their name, and if it be God's will, and if I end it with a certain word, then everything has to happen. That's part of the contract with God. And, well, God may not like the small print. Or worse, you might not like the small print in the contract. Life is very, very uncertain. There are a billion things happening all at once. And even if you could, by a sheer force of your imagination, I will myself to be rich and beautiful. There might be 10 million other people out there saying, oh no, you won't either. 10 million to 1 are not good odds. So this whole magical thinking is probably not a good idea. I do know some people that have made huge life choices based on the flip of a tarot card. Almost all of them have been terribly disappointed. Rules of the road. Be a person of few wants with regard to what you feel are necessities in life. For some people, an automobile is a status symbol. For others, it's a means of travel. Be content with the possessions you already have. Remember, you don't own anything. You're just borrowing it. Aim solely for peace, quiet, mental, and physical seclusion. Don't give up your power for the sake of others. Don't entangle yourself with human quarrels. People are going to argue for eternity. It's the nature of people. Try not to get involved. Don't invest your sanity in the craziness of others. Be single-minded, focused, and persistent at making your mind still and at peace. Reflect on your own conduct to see if you've overstepped any of your precepts that are boundaries. If you have, immediately make right and intend not to do it again. Doesn't mean you won't do it again, it just means that you have the intention not to do it again, and that's one way of purifying your karma. Focus on calling to mind a meditation theme that your mind can become firmly established in. This is hard for a lot of people. It's difficult to establish a theme that might be useful for a long time. Most people, I think that's why most people tend to go with breath meditation and just use the breath as a theme. In olden times, like 50, 60 years ago, we used to give people, different themes to meditate on. Contemplation is what we were talking about then. And then focus exclusively on those topics that will give rise to discernment, that is, wisdom and clear insight into the nature of reality. Make your mind well disposed toward the search for release from all defilements. Ill will, harmfulness, delusion, laziness, and boredom. I don't get bored. I used to. I don't get bored anymore because all I have to do is close my eyes, watch my mind, and I've got the greatest show on earth going on between my ears. You'd be surprised what goes on in there. Focus on contemplating how to come to realizations that will enable you to gain release from the fermentation of all defilements. Fermentation, things get stronger when they ferment. So do our defilements. Ill will, anger, laziness, boredom, delusion, greed. And these are the 7 factors for awakening. And you notice we've talked about all of them today. The power of mindfulness, recollection, and reference. Discrimination on choosing a meditation theme that is well suited to yourself. Persistence. Fullness of body and mind that comes with seclusion of body and mind. And physical stillness and mental serenity. Concentration and equanimity. Equanimity is applying kindness, compassion, and joy to everyone, to everything, without reservation. It leads to absolute serenity. All right, we have 5 minutes, I believe. Are there any questions, comments, off-color jokes? Is anybody awake? Good night. Oh, Charlotta, yes, we are. Okay. You're awake. Okay, good. Okay, well, good night. Thank you for showing up. If there's nothing else to be asked or said, I bid you a fond adieu, and I will see you again next week for class number 5. Bye.